Welcome to this week's OK at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague Russell Berger, both attorneys at Offit Kurman. And this week we are talking about non-competes again. And so, yes, this is not a repeat of one of our previous episodes, though it might seem that way. They are back in the news again with the National Labor Relations Board coming out with commentary on whether they are enforceable and how they restrict trade and how they impact the National Labor Relations Act and the ability of employees to advocate for working conditions. So what's going on, Russell? Why is this back in the news again? And what do we need to know?
Yeah, so a quick primer on the National Labor Relations Act, or NLRA. Among other things, it primarily serves to protect employees who are engaged in protected concerted activities, in an effort to change the working conditions under which they labor. The NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, enforces the National Labor Relations Act. And what happened on May 30th is the General Counsel of the National Labor Relations Board issued a memo where she said, I believe that most non-competes are in violation of the National Labor Relations Act and its protection because it inhibits the ability of employees to engage in protected concerted activity, and therefore that's in violation of the specific section of the National Labor Relations Act. To put it into some context, the National Labor Relations Act only applies to employees. It doesn't apply to independent contractors. It doesn't even apply to managers or ownership executive level employees either. So it's only a segment of the employee population that is subject to this law. And also the way the NLRB works is employees or labor unions can file unfair labor practice charges with the board that then the general counsel, who issued this memo, will investigate and attempt to enforce. So that's a long way of saying what this is really signaling is the NLRB is willing to take up these cases. And there will be unfair labor practice charges filed on these issues. The NLRB will likely pursue them. And there's a whole winding administrative process by which it will proceed. Ultimately, it can wind its way into court. So the short answer is this doesn't change the enforceability of your non-compete agreement today. The NLRB is just staking out their ground, saying we're going to try to challenge certain types of non-competes and try to wipe them out this way as well. As we've talked about here, and as you alluded to, states are making it harder to enforce non-competes. They're putting wage requirements in. It's a challenging thing to get a judge to throw out a non-compete or enforce a non-compete in such a manner that it puts someone out of a job. So we've talked about it plenty, that there are other options and other strategies that employers should be using either in place of or to supplement existing non-compete plans. And we really think that's still the case, is to still build on that, put other protections in place. The memo didn't really, suggest that there's still openings with respect to confidentiality provisions and non-solicitations of customers and other restrictions that, we've been advocating for inclusion as well.
Yeah, and this is very consistent with what we've been seeing, like you said, statewide and statewide around the country and with the other things that we've discussed. But there is a practical impact to this for sure. I mean, the non-competes keep ending up in the news. Obviously, we've had a tight labor market over the last couple of years. So, pairing all of these factors together, the ability to actually get employees to sign non-competes or for it to actually be a good move to even ask them to do so is, and the juice being worth the squeeze is really, diminishing at this point. And I'm just seeing just generally within my sample size of who I work with, it being a less and less common thing. Employers really opting for really strong non-solicitation clauses, obviously confidentiality, as you mentioned as well, and finding these other ways to achieve the goals that they're trying to achieve. And so there are a lot of other ways, and it's time to be a little bit more thoughtful about those things right now, for sure. And it's definitely not, these challenges to non-competes are not going away anytime soon. And it's a slow moving ship, but it is definitely moving in the direction of these being less and less enforceable and less likely for employees to sign or engage with at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's really just kind of as you're saying, it's just kind of another flag to employers to say, hey, pause, take a look at your agreements, see what you have in front of you, see what other options for protection are included or can be included, how you might want to modify that agreement going forward. And again, whether you include a non-compete or not, there are other things that you can do to protect yourself that you should be doing now.
And we also talk a little bit about carrot and stick in these situations as well. And a lot of times when employers are looking to make an employee subject to a non-compete, it's because they really value that employee, and that employee's got really good access to a lot of information and is a valuable resource to the company. And that's the reasoning behind that. So if you're thinking that you want a non-compete or you really don't want to lose this employee, there's also a lot of carrots you can give them right around retention. And we've talked about that on here as well. So in addition to keeping, making sure you've got tight contract terms, also good to be thinking about the broader strategy of how to keep your employees engaged and keep them there as well. If they're important enough to you that you would want them not to go elsewhere. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a great point because you don't want to trap your employees. That's not going to be a productive, engaged, high-performing workforce. You want them to choose to be with you, and obviously, if they choose to go elsewhere, so be it. You just don't want them to walk out the door with your business. But I think it's a really good point to think about the carrot aspect of it as well.
Well, thanks, Russell, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.